My name is Ekweremadu. I want to use this opportunity to bring up some important topics that we seem to have overlooked. One such important law topic is the case of Senator Ekweremadu. As we speak, the senator of Enugu West and his wife are still in custody in the United Kingdom facing trial. In our previous discussions, we tried to explain to you the implications of the court denying Ekweremadu bail. It only meant a few things. One, it meant that the evidence against Ekweremadu, as seen by the police and the prosecutor and the court in the United Kingdom, the evidence is very strong, very strong. If the court feels in any way that it's likely that Ekweremadu will be acquitted of these charges, the court would not like to place him in detention for 6 weeks so far, and it could be much longer. That is not how the British system operates. The developed countries, they hardly deny you bail unless the case is extremely strong, okay? Because they could have granted Ekweremadu bail and allow him to be monitored. They have devices to track people on bail, to make sure you don't jump bail, and to make sure you don't leave the country. So, but in this case, the court is keeping Ekweremadu locked up in a prison, and also keeping his wife locked up in a separate prison. The court is not allowing them to communicate between themselves. The court is not allowing them to use one lawyer. That tells you something. We know from experience for years in America, and which has an advanced judicial system comparable to the United Kingdom, we understand what it means when the court flatly denies bail and keeps someone locked up, especially someone so high profile. It means the evidence is strong, and of course it also means the offense is very grave. And certainly the offense they've been charged with is a very grave offense in the United Kingdom. So looking at it the way it is, I can say that Ekweremadu should be expecting the worst. He should be expecting a trial that will most likely result in his conviction. And if that is done, he's going to face many years in prison and with his wife in the United Kingdom. So we've also asked ourselves, what sort of evidence would the prosecutor have which will make them feel so strongly about this case? And we will think of video recorded evidence. We're thinking of voice recording evidence. That is possible. And why do we think that's likely the case? Because we understood that the British police investigated this case for about 3 to 4 weeks before Ekweremadu was arrested. And you must ask yourself, what sort of investigation will be going on for that length of time? It will involve wiretapping. It will involve tracking communications. It will involve video recording of certain people. It will involve statements made by some people. It may also involve admissions made by Ekweremadu. We don't know precisely what it is. All we can tell you now is that it must be strong enough to justify the continued detention and denial of bail. And of course, as you know, the case has moved up from the magistrate court where it started to the Crown Court. The Crown Court is the equivalent of a high court. It signifies more serious offenses coming the way of Ekweremadu. So it is something not so good for the Ekweremadu. But another thing puzzling to me is the fact that Ekweremadu's case has disappeared from the Nigerian news. It's not being discussed. None of the news medias, even the blogs or social media, they're not talking about this case anymore. Why is that? Are they just waiting until August 4th when Ekweremadu appears in court? They'll report what happened on that day, and that's the end of it. That tells you something very troubling. Ekweremadu is supposed to be a very important person in Nigeria. His case is not supposed to be forgotten or ignored by the news. It shouldn't happen. But the fact that it happens tells you something about Ekweremadu, tells you something about his fame. He was not as famous as we thought. He was not as big as we thought. People don't perceive him as we thought. Otherwise, his case should be top of the news anywhere in the world. Except, but it's not. So, bear that in mind. Another thing of importance we can talk about today is the incident about 2 weeks ago, the 5th and 6th of July, the invasion of the attack on the Kuje prison. Kuje prison, as you know, is the biggest prison in the capital city of Nigeria, Abuja. Prominent people are detained there, ex-governors, ex-ministers, top officials. They are detained there. So, and also some terrorists, suspects, Boko Haram suspects and convicts were held in that prison. So, what happened? These terrorists came, broke into the prison unstopped, and that's a big puzzle. The prison is highly guarded, had always been highly guarded by a team of all the security services, the police, the military, the civil defense, the prison arms squad, immigration arms squad. You must know that Nigerian immigration has its own arms unit. They carry guns, trained to shoot and kill. Okay? That is when they deal with people on border, crossing illegal border crossing and things. Then you have, as people are now realizing, the prison authority has its own arms squad. These are prison officials trained to shoot. They guard the prisons, and their main purpose for arming themselves was if they had to fight inmates trying to escape, either escaping from prison or escaping on the way being conveyed to court, or if gang members of inmates were to try to rescue their members. So, Nigerian Prison Authority has an armed unit which was trained to prevent what happened on the 5th and 6th of July. They were supposed to be on duty. They had high tower, they have floodlights, they have capacity to detect movement and approaches to the prison in the night. They were supposed to be on duty. Soldiers were supposed to be there with their guns pointed at the gate of prison. They were supposed to mount some checkpoints from the road to the prison. All these facilities, all these assets that were meant to deter what happened on the 5th and 6th of July failed to work. Nothing happened. No resistance. The terrorists came in with heavy bombs and blasted away concrete fortifications and the ironwork, metalwork done to protect and guard the prison facility. All these were broken through, and they got in there. We are waiting to hear things. We were thinking by now that some officials will start resigning. Somebody has to resign for these things, but nobody's doing that. Nobody's taking responsibility for what happened, and that is troubling. That's troubling because without an adequate explanation of what happened, and without anybody taking responsibility, it's very likely it could happen again. So our prisons are not safe. Even the inmates could have all been slaughtered by the terrorists. So it's a big thing. It is disappearing in the news too. We're supposed to be talking about this today. It's supposed to continue to dominate our news media, but no mention is being made anymore of what happened in Kuje. So many more such things will happen. Our own role here in DPA and the Eklo News is to remind you. This is a reminder because others will forget. You should not forget what happened. Strange and extraordinary events are occurring, and you shouldn't forget them. You should be constantly aware of them. That is the way you maintain your eternal vigilance as a citizen, to make sure the law is being followed, to make sure that your public officials are serving your best interests, and to make sure that our society is safe and secure. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for today's update.